Oi, oi, you filthy swines! Get in here, sit down. We're going to do this. We're going to read some news. A few years ago, I suggested to a young person that they'd probably be best off if they stayed in the university system for longer because of the upheavals that are coming in the job market. And I think that's panning out. I think there are two approaches you can have to what's coming down the road. You can either become extremely specialist and vital, or you can become an extreme generalist and also easy to plant yourself on green pastures if you know lots of things, if you're a jack of all trades. The question for parents and young people is, with all these AI technologies coming down the road, how do you position yourself in an education system with an eye for getting a job in the long term if things are changing so much in the next 10 years? I find it very hard to think that things are just going to change in the next 10 years and then there's going to be an equilibrium. I think we're in for a very, very interesting few hundred years. With this article, we'll see if it covers any of this. From Vox, written by Sigil Samuel. I recognize that name. Hello, Sigil, or is it Samuel? Or both? I don't know. What should you be teaching your kids right now to prepare them for an AI scrambled job market? The best educational choice you can make for your child might not focus on your child at all. No. Should you focus instead on your box wine and not worry about it? I work with a lot of very smart people, and sometimes one of them asks me a question that stops me in my tracks. That's what happened after I published the newest installment of my advice column, Your Mileage May Vary, which was about whether it's more icky to send your kid to private school instead of the local public school. Brian Walsh, one of my editors, hit me with a question below. I felt so many people would relate to it that I wanted to publish it along with my response to it. In the future, I hope to share more of these smart questions from within our newsroom. For now, consider this about making decisions under radical uncertainty. Here's Brian's question. Sigil's column is characteristically smart, and I'd encourage anyone wrestling with the decision about how to educate their child to read it. But as a parent of an 8-year-old in a Brooklyn public school, that strikes me the most about the private vs public debate isn't the ethical dimension, it's the sheer vertigo of not knowing. Something I realized fairly soon as a parent is that we get exactly one shot at it. There's no control group. You can't run your kid through public school, rewind, try private, and then compare outcomes at age 30. You're forced to make what could be a massive consequential decision with radically incomplete information. Well, I suppose if you've got the money to put the child in private school, and the private school has a better track record than the public school, then I would imagine that's a good decision. I don't know. That uncertainty gnaws at me. When I was growing up in the 1980s, the basic formula for life was still legible, get good grades, go to a good college, get a job. That pathway still exists, but it's fraying in ways that make school choice, like so much else today, feel more like a shot in the dark. What skills will actually matter in 15 years? Will the curriculum your kid learns in 3rd grade have any bearing on a labor market being reshaped by AI? Will the network your child builds matter less or even more? I imagine elementary school level and even middle school level is always going to be pretty much languages, math, science. Just get the foundations in. It doesn't have to be debated that much, I wouldn't think. It's when kids start to specialize more, when they start to have electives and start to go down that route of deciding what it is that they are most passionate about. That's changing a lot. But the requirement for understanding trigonometry and languages, I don't think is going to go away, and I would want to see a world where that is eroded. I'm supposed to be a futurist, this chap says, and I have no idea. I suppose it's some comfort that neither does anyone else. Though plenty of people will charge you $40,000 a year in tuition to pretend they do. The research Sigil cites is genuinely reassuring. Family background matters more than which building your kid sits in. But knowing that intellectually doesn't silence the 3 a.m. voice that whispers, what if you're getting this wrong? It seems as if you're concerned that you're spending $40,000 a year for something that is useless. So I don't know. Are you basically saying that you're going to throw your hands in the air and give up and just throw your child to the public school, even if you can afford not to? I don't know. This is such relatable content. How are you supposed to set up your child's one wild and precious life, as Mary Oliver put it, when life offers you no clear instruction manual and you only get one try? This is hard in the most stable of times, and it feels even harder now. when so many parents are wondering how they can possibly educate their kids in a way that'll prepare them for AI's disruptions to the labor market and society overall. You're right about two things. First, the old formula for life success, good grades at a good school will get you a good job, can be counted on less and less. I'd argue for elementary and middle school, they're still very relevant. And second, parents now have to make decisions about their kids' education with radically incomplete information. Uncertainty is a very hard thing to hold, especially at 3 a.m. So at this point, I could try to reassure you by telling you the concrete things you can do to benefit your individual child. I could reiterate what many AI executives and early adopters have told their own kids. Cultivate soft skills like listening, empathy, and accountability, and metacognitive skills like critical thinking, experimentation, and flexibility. Okay, these are good attitudes to have. I could also reiterate something I've said before. Good education is about much more than ensuring job security. As Aristotle argued back in ancient Greece, it's about cultivating all the character virtues that make for a flourishing life. Honesty, courage, justice, and especially phronesis. That wonderful thing we all know about. It's called phronesis, and it's magical. We're going to find out more about phronesis right now. Or good judgment. It's called good judgment. That's what phronesis means. Learning to discern the morally salient features of a given situation so you can make a judgment call that's well attuned to that unique situation. The advent of AI makes a virtue like phronesis more relevant than ever, because your kid will need to be able to wisely discern how to make use of emerging technologies and how not to. But the thing about the virtue is you build them up through practice. If your kid doesn't have the opportunity to encounter friction and forces them to practice reasoning and deliberating, they'll have a very hard time developing good judgment. And AI tends to remove friction. It makes things fast and easy, which can be handy in the short term, but can also lead to intellectual and moral de-skilling in the long term. I don't think these are fancy calculators. I think we're in danger of becoming extremely lazy as a result of a lot of these technologies, because they will take away our need to reason, and eventually our ability to reason may disappear along with it. And then what are we then? We are just experiences of machine decisions. Very strange. As AI use pervades society more and more, I think the most unusual kind of person will be the ones who has become neither brain dulled nor virtue dulled by deferring to AI models without using their own cognitive muscles first. Exactly. I agree with you. Exactly what I said, but in different words. So if your goal is to make your kids stand out in a way that just might give them a leg up when they're grown, I'd say make sure they build those muscles while they're young. And for the love of God, keep exercising them. Even if this doesn't give them full security in the labor market, it'll help them live a more flourishing life writ large. Definitely be flexible, have the capacity to learn entirely new things, be prepared to do things that you previously never imagined you'll do. If you're like a rabbit in the headlights because new opportunities are coming along and you've never done them before, and you stick your head in the sand because you've never done them before, then you're not doing yourself any favors. So flexibility would be my suggestion, and also encouraging your kids to do more of the things that they love doing. People that love what they do usually become great at it. The nice thing about this advice for you as a parent struggling to know what to do for your kid is that it means you don't have to do anything wildly different from what's been done in the past. The benefits of a classic humanities or liberal arts education are still among the very best you can give your child. But I would disagree. I'm not sure liberal arts or humanities are fixed points that are as relevant as math and languages or science. I think they're very plastic. I think humanities and liberal arts are subjects that are more relevant to people in later high school or college. That would be my opinion, though. While I think all the advice I've mentioned so far is reasonable on the individual level, I argue the very best advice would be to question the entire premise that focusing on that individual level will be an effective way to ensure much of anything for your child's future. On the current trajectory, it seems all too likely that we're heading toward a future of grand disempowerment, as some AI researchers put it. The basic idea is that as AI becomes a cheaper alternative to human labor in most jobs, the economic pressure to sideline humans will become incredibly hard to resist, especially if there are economic hardships that are felt by the corporations. So it's not just whether people become unemployed, it's when corporations have to maintain their own profitability for their own survival that you'll see AI injected in between to prop up these organizations, in my opinion. Historically, citizens in democratic states have enjoyed a bunch of rights and protections because states needed us. We provide the labor that makes everything run, from the economy to the military. But when AI provides the labor and the state becomes less dependent on us, it doesn't have to pay as much attention to our demands. Worse, any state that does continue taking care of human workers might find itself at a competitive disadvantage against others that don't. And so the forces that have traditionally kept governments accountable to their citizens gradually erode, and we end up being deeply disempowered. Exactly, they're drawing straight lines based upon efficiency within these corporations. And humans are the engines of industry, have been since the dawn of time, and those engines are being replaced artificially. Under these conditions, focusing on the object level question of what skills should I teach my individual child is a bit like trying to protect your kid from climate change by buying them a better sun hat. Instead, it makes more sense to focus on the structural problem, which demands political engagement and collective organization. If you want your kid to have a job as an adult, then teaching them to be an effective citizen and advocate, and doing that work yourself right now, probably matters more than any particular school subject they will study. What is an effective citizen and advocate, though? I don't understand what you're suggesting there. Advocate sounds almost like you're suggesting being a political activist of some sort, which to me sounds nice if you're advocating for something that seems positive, but every activist group has the capacity to be hijacked for negative end goals. This can take many concrete forms. Organizing with your labor union, supporting advocacy groups that push the government to make tech equitable and accountable, voting for politicians who share your vision, and spreading compelling counter-narratives to the fanciful stories that AI companies are selling the public. I know that accepting the limits of what we can guarantee by focusing on the personal level is a tough pill to swallow. We live in a culture that conditions us to think in terms of the atomized individual and valorizes being self-sufficient and self-directed. See Silicon Valley's current obsession with being high agency. But my own life has taught me how fragile that model is. I grew up in a family on welfare, so financial and professional security feels very salient to me. I tend to gravitate towards a hoarding mentality, that is, faced with my own 3 a.m. anxieties, I spent years trying to maintain a sense of control by telling myself that if I burnish my educational credentials, work hard at my job, and save enough money, I'll be okay. I think that has a lot of validity to it, yes. But for me, that illusion of control came crashing down a decade ago when I developed a chronic illness. For a while, it was so intense I could barely walk, and I was shattered to discover that nothing I hoarded, my education, my job, my savings, could help me. Imagine your savings helped a bit. Even worse than the physical pain was the emotional pain of feeling alone. My doctors shunted me from specialist to specialist, and my friends and family didn't realize that I needed more support. I was so used to the idea that I was self-sufficient in my castle, buttressed by the achievements I'd hoarded, that I didn't think to ask. Recently, a friend of mine also developed a chronic illness, but unlike me, she'd spent many years cultivating a community of extremely tight-knit friends. They're the sort of group that talks a lot about solidarity and mutual aid, and they walk the talk. I've watched how my friend, buoyed by all the meals and parties and other ministrations they lavish on her, has been able to manage her physical challenges with so much less fear and so much more security than me. My castle isolated me. Her refusal to build one gave her true safety. As AI disrupts the labor market, I'm trying to move myself from the hoarding model to the solidarity model. And I wonder if it might serve you and your family well too. The problem we're all about to face together is structural, not individual. So the benefits you can offer your child on the individual level are, it pains me to say, fairly limited. But if you focus on political engagement, there we go, it is about politics and collective organizing, that could actually make some difference to the structural dynamic and teach your child to ask structural questions and be civically engaged as well, you might be able to sleep a little better at night. Okay, so the suggestion there is get your kid involved in what? Political activist groups? I'm not sure. Being a civic member, I guess. That's a very socialist perspective there, I suppose. I don't think you should be so bleak about fundamental education. I think elementary, middle school, all very relevant. I don't think there's any reason to downplay the importance of those because they are core concepts that the rest of your brain develops on top of. So if you have a good understanding of math and science and art and whatever, then you're more likely to be able to think your way around the world's problems, would be my guess. But yeah, don't be too surprised if you end up doing jobs that you didn't expect to do and also finding you quite like them if you give them the time of the day. But yeah, like I suggested to that young person, probably a good idea if you're in college at the moment and you're doing a practical degree, not a humanities or whatever the other one was that she suggested, to go as long and far as you can. Get yourself a master's or maybe a PhD or whatever, and try and become an expert in a field that is going to be used perpetually. That's my guess. It's hard to say what fields aren't going to be in some way gobbled up by AI, but a lot of them, especially the creative media, I think are going to depend upon people for a long time to come, because we like content made by other people. AI is very good at making generic stuff, and it'll perhaps get better at becoming more apparently creative. But at the moment, the really profound stuff still requires a person to come up with the idea and to execute it. So even the best AI video models, the end result is only as good as the person who put it together. Some examples out there look visually good, but the timing is all wrong. The audio is all wrong. It doesn't really hang together. You can tell that hasn't really been put together by somebody who has any skills or understanding of cinematography. I'm not perfect at that stuff, but I've been wading into it quite a bit these past few years. I hope I'm getting better. I think I am. I expect video and particularly video game development as well, going to require a lot of human input. A lot of creative media is going to have opportunities for people to continue learning and contributing. So yeah, follow your heart, get a good foundation, don't worry so much, and be flexible. That's my advice. But that is it for now. Thank you for joining me. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you also subscribe. But that is it for now. And the only thing I have left to say is Pigwig out.
Oink, oinkity, snort, snuffle, snuffle, squeak, oink, oink, wee, squeal, snort, snort, oink, kitty, squeak. Oink, 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 squeak, squeak, wee, 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 snuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinky, oink, snort, snort, squeak, oink, 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 wee, 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 oh. Snort, snuffle, oink, squeak, squeal, wee, snort, oinky, oinkity, oink, oink, snuffle, wee, squeak, snort, oink, squeal. Oink, 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 squeak, squeak, wee, 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 snuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinky, oink, snort, snort, squeak, oink, 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 wee, 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 oh. Oink, oinkity, snort, snuffle, snuffle, squeak, oinkity, oink, oink, snuffle, wee, squeak, snort, oink, squeal. Oink, 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 squeak, squeak, wee, 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 snuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinky, oink, snort, snort, squeak, oink, 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 wee, 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 oh. Squeal, squeal. Snort, snuffle, oink, re, squeal, re, snort, oinky, oinkity, oink, 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 snuffle, re, squeak, snort, oink, squeal, oink, oink, oinkity, squeak, squeak, re, 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 snuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinky, oink, snort, snort, squeak, oink, 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 re, 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 oh. Squeal, squeal, snort, snuffle, oink,